Good day everyone. Today we are going to explore everything we need to look at before buying a used car, whether it's a fairly new one like this, it's less than 5 years old, or an older one as well. We'll go through everything we need to look at and everything we need to check before negotiating a fair price and buying the car. So let's get started. Now, firstly, before we go out and have a look at any used cars, we need to know what type of car we're looking at. In some instances, what make and model we want, what year, and what our budget is as well. That helps us go into the negotiation knowing exactly what the car is worth and knowing just exactly what we can get for our money. I definitely think doing your research first is the most important and the first step to buying a used car. Now, once we've decided on the car we want, it's time to go and have a look at it. Now, the first rule is do not go at night or when it's raining. Wet panels will cover up any peeling on the roof or on the bonnet, and nighttime hides any difference in shades of the panels that can cover up an accident that's been resprayed. We want to look at it in the light of day so we can get a good look at everything, all the panel gaps, all the colors, and make sure the car is exactly what we think it is. It's also a good idea to do what we in Australia call a REVS check on the vehicle. Using just the license plate information, we can see if the car has been stolen or written off, if there's any money owing on the car. It'll also tell us if the odometer matches what we can see, and it will give us a fair valuation of a vehicle of this type. There is a fee around $30 to $40 to do one, but it's good peace of mind if you're buying a fairly expensive car and you just want to make sure everything is as it seems. Now, once we've inspected the car, we've had a look at all the obvious things of paint and scratches and dents. A good place to start is have a look at the wheels and the tyres. First thing, are the tyres a brand you've heard of? And are they mismatched around the car? If they are, it could suggest the car's been run on a tight budget, which isn't good for the rest of the car. Also, are they worn? If they're worn down to the tread wear indicators, you could be up for a new set of tyres, and that can cost you over $1,000 straight away. Also, are they worn evenly? If we have feathering of the edges or lumps and bumps or anything weird going on the tyre tread, it may suggest we have some issues with the suspension geometry, whether it's due to hitting curbs or something more sinister like the car has been in an accident. So double check, make sure all the tyres are worn evenly across the face. Have a look at the rims as well. If there's any rash, it could suggest that the car has been hitting curbs, and that's not a good thing either. Have a look at the spare as well. Is it a full-size spare? Is it an alloy like the rest of the car? Or is it a space saver? Also, more importantly than anything, is there a spare? Because one day you might need it. Now, don't be scared to get down and have a look under the car. You want to have a look underneath the car to make sure there's no rust going on and no bends or anything like that to suggest that it's been in an accident. You'll have a look underneath, make sure all the rails are nice and straight, make sure everything's really clean and tidy. If this car is under 5 years old, everything should look absolutely immaculate under there. If it doesn't, maybe question it. Now, next we move under the bonnet. Have a look at the engine and the transmission. Now, the more Ks the engine and transmission have done, the less I'd expect to pay for a car, especially one that is 5 years or newer. We need to pull the dipsticks out, have a look at everything. Don't be scared of pulling the dipstick out of the engine. We have a look, make sure it's at the right level. It should be a nice golden brown color. It shouldn't smell too much of fuel or anything else like that. And it definitely shouldn't be a milky color. That suggests we have water entry into the engine, and that can cost a lot of money to repair. So double check that. If it has a dipstick for the automatic transmission, assuming it's an auto that you're looking at, pull the dipstick out and have a look at the automatic transmission fluid. The level could be unusual because a lot of them need to be checked while the engine is running, but make sure that it is a nice red color and it doesn't smell burnt. Have a look at the coolant reservoir. It should be a green or a red coolant. It should be nice and clean, and it shouldn't be milky either. We don't want oil in the coolant, and we don't want coolant in the oil. Of course, if we're looking at a 5-year or newer car, everything under here should be immaculate. We don't want anything rusting. We don't want any corrosion to the aluminium or anything to suggest it's been in salt water or washed with salt water or anything like that. And have a look at the battery. Make sure it hasn't warped or split or anything. I did see one of these cars recently, and it was clear that the battery had split at some point and the acid had rusted the subframe. So have a look around there. Make sure the battery hasn't spilt its acid at some point and rusted some of the car. Definitely something to look out for. Other than that, a general look over, make sure everything's clean, your brake fluid looks clean, and everything looks as it should. Now, once it's time to move inside the vehicle, we should reach into the glove box and pull out the service and warranty information. The service information should be filled out up to the kilometers that the car has done. If it's done 100,000 kilometers, we should have service intervals all filled out up to 100,000 Ks. We need a history that this car has been looked after and serviced. Of course, if it's less than 5 years old, there should also be some warranty information. Make sure we have that in the glove box, along with anything else related to the car. Any works carried out, we want receipts, and make sure everything that we need is all together in the booklet, nice and neatly in the glove box. Don't be scared to sit down, have a bit of a read, and make sure everything that should have been done on this car has been done. Now that we're inside the car, it's also a good chance to have a look around and make sure everything is as it seems. We don't have scratches everywhere, or it hasn't been sunburnt. There's no cracks or anything on the dash. It hasn't been covered up with a dash mat. Make sure we look underneath there. No chips in the windscreen that might cost us money. Make sure everything is as it should be. On a car this age, the interior should be immaculate. And that extends to the back seat as well. Have a look in here, make sure there's no stains in the carpets that we can't get out or rips in the seat. Make sure everything is as it should be in the back seat if the car has one. This is also part of the car you're buying. You want to make sure all of it is as it seems. So once you're happy with everything that's going on with the car, it's time to take it for a test drive. Start it up, have a listen to it idle, make sure there's no smoke or anything crazy going on when you start it up, and turn the radio off. Once that's gone, you can hear what's going on with the car. Take it for a test drive and make sure you get it up to the maximum permissible speed you can. If there's a road nearby, you can get up to 100 kilometers an hour. It's a good idea to do so. Make sure the transmission's working and doing everything it should, and make sure that there's no vibrations or wobbles or anything going on when you reach that 100k an hour mark. Also, make sure it gets up to temperature fairly quickly, but doesn't go above half. Check out the air conditioner, make sure it works, make sure it doesn't affect the engine or make any weird noises, and it doesn't create a temperature increase in the engine either. Other than that, make sure that everything else works, wipers, indicators, stereo controls, everything that you're buying, make sure it works, make sure it goes into reverse when you come back to park it up. And if the guy selling the car wants to come with you, that's perfectly fine. Just make sure you tell him to be quiet so you can hear everything that's going on and you can think while you're test driving the car. So that is all the major things to look at when buying a car of this age. Of course, if you're ever in doubt, there are heaps of mechanics and workshops that will do an inspection for you. They'll usually generate a report for a fee, and that will give you the peace of mind to know what you're buying is as it should be. Now, let's have a look at the negotiation. So once the car is everything you want it to be and you're happy with it and it's time to buy it, it may also be a good time to walk away. Walk away for an hour or so, or even a day, and discuss it with your significant other and think about it. It's easy to fall in love while you're looking at the car and you want it now, but you don't want to pay too much for it. And you don't want to commit to something that you're maybe not ready for. Walk away, have a coffee, think about it, and then come back with an offer if you're ready. And when it is time to offer, we don't want to lowball too hard, but we don't want to start our negotiation too high and pay more than we need to. We don't want to rip off the person buying it. We don't want to rip ourselves off either. Set yourself a budget, start fairly low, work your way up, and don't go over your budgeted amount. Now, let's have a look at buying an older car. Now, maybe you are looking to buy a much older car, perhaps from the 90s or the early 2000s. Well, all them things we just spoke about earlier for the newer car are still applicable, with a few extras and a few exceptions as well. One of the biggest pitfalls to buying a used car of this age is the older they are, the more likely they are going to rust, especially in Europe and North America, where they salt the roads as a result of snow. Now, one thing we can do is visually inspect all the rocker panels under the wheel arches and have a look for any visual signs of rust. And we can also use a magnet with a rag on it to protect the paint and see if it sticks to the panels. It should stick to all the panels evenly, especially check around the bottom edges here. If it doesn't stick very well or it doesn't stick at all, it may be a result of body filler used to fill in either a giant dent or, in most cases, where rust has taken the metal away and they filled it with body filler or Bondo. Just make sure, and very carefully without scratching the car, that they all stick evenly, and that will tell you if there's been any body filler in the vehicle as a result of rust or damage. Now, under the bonnet on the older car, everything is exactly the same as on the new car. We still need to have a look at the oil, make sure the level is good and the color is good as well. Coolant, make sure we have no oil and coolant mixed together. Make sure it's the nice clean red or green color, depending on the brand that is being used. And if it has an automatic transmission, make sure we check the dipstick on that and the oil isn't burnt. It's a nice reddy, maybe a little bit of brown color, and make sure that's not due for service as well. Of course, major items may be due on the older engine. They've done more Ks. Most timing belts are due around 100,000 Ks or 150,000 Ks, have a look. If it has been due recently, make sure it's been done. If it's coming up due, that might be something you can use to negotiate the price of the vehicle. A timing belt will set you around $500, maybe up to $2,000, depending on the vehicle. Of course, they've done more Ks, there's going to be much more wear and tear, and we have to accept that with an older car. Usually we're paying a lot less money for an older car because the engine has done a lot more Ks and been through a lot harder work over its years. Now, inside the older car, yes, it is an older car. It may have a little bit more sunburn inside it, especially if it's from Australia, and the interior may be a little bit more ratty, but that doesn't mean you have to accept something that is awful. It should still be fairly nice in here. It should be worn for its age, and everything should still work. If you're buying a car like this, you're paying for everything that's on it, and you want to make sure that everything works. Check everything out. Make sure that the indicators work, and make sure that all the buttons light up. Make sure all the gauges work. Make sure the wipers and everything like that works. You don't want to buy something that you have to fix a crucial element of the car. So make sure you take time and try everything out. Have a look for rips and tears and stains. All of that is something that should knock a little bit off the price of the car if it isn't already priced in. So when it comes to test driving the older car, everything with the newer car is still the same. Make sure that everything works as it should. Just be a little bit more scrutineering as the car is a bit older, so there's a much higher chance that something may not work. Use all the buttons, turn the lights on, make sure that everything that you're paying for does work. If it has a manual transmission, make sure the clutch doesn't slip and it feels firm, but also quite linear. It should feel the same through its stroke. We should have no notching or anything weird like that. Make sure that the gear stays in. Make sure it doesn't feel unusual. Every gear should be nice and notchy without being sloppy or falling out of gear, and make sure reverse works as well. Of course, get the car up to its maximum speed. If you can get up to 100 kilometers an hour, the maximum permissible speed, you should be able to get a feel for how the car handles on the road. There should be no vibration. It shouldn't pull left or right when you brake. You should be able to get it through all the gears if you're getting up to 100 kilometers an hour, and you should get a feel for how the car is operating on the road. It also shouldn't get hot. Make sure that the temperature gauge gets to half fairly quickly and doesn't go over half. Make sure it doesn't stay too cold either. If it's got a stuck thermostat or someone's removed it for whatever reason, they could be hiding a bigger issue. Once you're happy that the car's doing everything it needs to do, make sure you turn on the air conditioning. It will load the engine up a little bit. We shouldn't get any squealing. The engine shouldn't try and stall or anything like that. And it should cool down the cabin fairly quickly. If the car is equipped with air conditioning and you're paying for it, you want to make sure it works. And at the end of the day, whether you're buying a fairly new car or a much older one like this, it all comes down to price. How much are you willing to pay, and what are you willing to deal with? Are you okay with doing a little bit of maintenance on the engine, fixing some rust, or dealing with a fairly ratty interior in order to pay less money for the car? Or do you want a better car and you're happy to pay a little bit more money to get one? It all comes down to the price you negotiate with the seller to make sure both parties are happy based on the condition of the vehicle. So hopefully some of these tips we've given you today gives you a bit more insight into what you're looking at when buying your next used car and helps you negotiate a fair price with the seller. Thank you very much for watching.